as Abe is now with us. Are you properly hydrated, sir, at the place?
I'm good. I'm ready. I'm ready.
So my question in opening kickoff was, would you, sir, ever go to a stadium just to watch a contract signing?
As the water working in the said stadium, or how do we feel about that situation? There'd have to be free food. Free food for sure. Tickets would have to be free. I'd have to be close. Like, I don't want to sit like upper deck watching it on the. It really probably just boils down to the free food. If I get a free lunch out of it, I might go.
Okay, because the reason I was asking, Jose Mourinho had his contract signing in Turkey, and it looked like the stadium was full. So you're talking probably like 40,000 folks. I don't quite have the Fenerbahce stadium capacity off the top of my head, but the joint looked full. And basically, he's in there for 15 minutes to take some selfies, get a scarf put around his neck, sign an alleged contract. Like I said, if he's just going in there and signing a contract and his lawyers ain't looked at it and he's signing it, it's like, bro, what are you up to here? I'm guessing that contract was a show contract. But yeah, 15 minutes in, smoke, flares, selfies, scarf, signing, out the door. Would you go for something like that?
No, but are we sure it was real people? Could have been the cardboard cutout recycles from the COVID times.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at the pictures from the Telegraph, and it looked like absolute people and a massive humanity and red smoke and the whole deal, and a dude who's watching Jose sit there. Is this line that I signed? I signed it right here. Okay.
They got more free time than I've got. That's all I'll say.
And so my question is, would you be like if your college team had a contract signing? It's like if you really were bringing in the hot property in college football, would you go to your stadium to see something like that? So that was opening kickoff this morning, considering all of the furor and the waving of the hands and the gnashing of teeth. And oh my God, we got Jose Mourinho. Holy crap! Let's go see the signing. So that was opening kickoff this morning. Like I said, it was just.
I'll go if I can get a percentage of his salary. Like, you give every fan in attendance gets a small chunk of the the change.
Ooh,
might go for that.
I like that. So, I like that idea. I'll have to save that and move it forward. So that's opening kickoff. Brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15. You get 15% off your purchase. They in turn take 10% reinvested into really cool stuff that they have earmarked at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. All right, you slept on it. What do you think?
I think it's not good, if we're going to be honest. I think it's a situation where this season had expectations, and I don't see a path to matching or meeting those at this point. Certainly, the Supporter Shield is well beyond gone. I think a top 4 is well beyond gone. I don't even know if you can make the playoffs at this point. And there's not a good adjustment to be made, especially when you're coming up to 6 or so weeks here where you're going to be missing a number of key players due to international call-ups, the Olympics, personal matters, injuries, a variety of reasons. And quite frankly, I think the disappointing thing of all this is you were hopeful that Wednesday at Inter Miami was the start of something. We had said on the Five Stripes Countdown, the one thing you can't have happen is for that to be a lone result.
Yeah.
And that, unfortunately, is what it's turning out to be. You lose your 5th straight at home. And quite frankly, we're right back to where we were, where the XG is one thing and the actual G is another. And chances created are being wasted, and it's frustrating. For all, I guess we call Charlotte our rivals, whatever. That felt like a game you probably could have had, and there's been way too many of those in this season, with the exception of probably the first 3 or 4 games of the year. Games you felt you could have had and didn't. There were a lot of questions about Gonzalo Pineda. I still don't really understand the idea behind Josh Cohen. The simplistic answer of it worked in Miami, so it'll work today is quite frankly inexcusable. Like, that's just not strong enough. That's not what you do as a manager. And that one was really frustrating. I don't know necessarily how the game changes with Brad Guzan. I certainly don't think the own goal happens. I would imagine Guz is a little more authoritative and punches that ball out. It never gets to Derek Williams. Just my personal thoughts. I'm not, no factor on that. I don't know if he's able to stop either of Abada's shots, but those weren't like some like historic hit either. I mean, they didn't hit the side netting. They rolled along the ground. Felt like they should have been saved and weren't. So now they also shouldn't have been able to get through and into goal because defenders just stayed back and watched him give him space, and that's its own problem. But look, you're approaching a thing now that we've talked about, and we thought maybe Wednesday would kind of change the narrative on that, but it didn't. And you have to make a decision. You have 15 days off or 13, 12 days off, whatever it is, before your next game. And if you're going to make a change in terms of the leadership of this team, now would be the only time that actually makes sense to do it. It probably could have been done earlier. Match congestion was a main contributor as to why you didn't. But if Pineda is still the manager when you play the Houston Dynamo, I would expect that he's the manager for the remainder of the season. But right now, I don't know if that's going to be the case.
So, all right. So I was taking notes as you were talking. How are you in other sports about playing the hot hand?
I don't think it really – I mean, all sports are different, right? So I think if you're a hockey goalie and maybe you're a backup and you made a couple great saves and we've talked about hockey goalies getting hot at the right time, I think maybe there's some discussion of that. I think you can look at matchups in Major League Baseball. This reliever's gotten a couple ground balls, stuff like that. But in terms of the overall scope of things, I mean – I just don't buy that. And also, what makes the hand hot? One game? Like one game in Miami? Does that – and I know we played the U.S. Open Cup, and he did well in the shootouts and stuff like that. But, like, I don't buy into that. I think you need to do what's best for your team. And over the course of time, maybe it works out on a short span, but over the course of the time, your best option is your best option for a reason. I mean, sometimes we see backup quarterbacks come in while a starter is hurt and getting checked out for a concussion, whatever, they lead a touchdown drive.
Right.
Well, when the starter's back healthy and cleared out of protocol, do we just let the backup continue? Like, no, you go with your starter because there's a reason he's your starter. He's been better over the long term of things, and he's probably going to be better in the short term as well. So I understand it, but to me, that's not really a mindset I would use. Unless the plan has been to make a change permanent. And I don't see why that would be the case because Brad has been better, in my opinion, this year than I had expected. And so I am not taking that away from him, certainly not because of the red card suspension, which was nonsensical anyways.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in an hour or two. All right, so then let me put Josh v. Brad to the side, and then what about the lineup with the 10 going forward where you're playing the three center backs for the second match in a row because of how it worked against Miami? Yes, I know that that Charlotte traditionally does not have two up top, but you are dealing with a power forward in Ajimong, and you want to make sure that he doesn't get anything past you. What did you think about the idea formationally of going with that same formation that got you the big win in Miami?
Yeah, a couple of things, and I think we're maybe simplifying too much what three center backs does, because to me, the biggest benefit of running the three center backs is keeping Thiago Almada in an attacking position, keeping him higher up the field where he doesn't feel like he has to drop back and help defend necessarily. And when he gets the ball, he can turn and run and make his mark. I think that's what happened in Wednesday against Miami. Here's the problem. You were never going to have the space against Charlotte that Miami gave you because they just simply weren't going to put the numbers into the attack that Miami did. And so the premise, the whole idea of why having three center backs worked against Miami is pretty much null and void against Charlotte. And we kind of expected that. And we had said leading up. We had said even after the Miami game, I don't know when we see that again because Charlotte doesn't make sense because they don't put the numbers into attack that would require 3 center backs. And so, again, this whole mindset of it worked in Miami, it'll work against Charlotte very clearly was not the case. And to add to that, you've obviously got some injuries you had to deal with. You had some lack of fitness you had to deal with. And so there's some other aspects, but I'll be honest, this was not a very good game, in my opinion, for Derek Williams. Obviously, the own goal aside, there were some moments in the second half where I'm like, dude, you got to stop backing up. Like at some point, you got to challenge the shooter, especially since he's already put one in from this distance. So it was a tough look all around on defense. This is a team in Charlotte that had scored the second fewest goals in the entire Eastern Conference, and you let them get 3 up on you. I felt you could win this game if you put 2 home, and you did, and it still wasn't enough. So, yeah, it's something that worked once. It's not something you had really done at any point the rest of the season. I don't think that going back to it, considering the adjustments from the opponent, I don't think it was the greatest decision, to be honest.
And post-match, word did come out of the locker room that Derek did take responsibility for the second goal because if you watch it on replay, Derek does not step out in time for Abada to take the shot. And so Derek owned up to that post-match.
Yeah, look, I have nothing wrong with Derek Williams. Everyone has a bad game. I think he's allowed to have a game where it just didn't feel right for him. And right. Yesterday seemed to be that between the own goal in that moment. And so I think his return has been very important to pair him alongside Steon Gregerson. But I do think you kind of lose a little bit of what they do as a pairing when you spread them out over the course of 3 center backs. And then obviously Steon dealing with another injury. We'll see what his status is. We do have 12 days off, so we're all hopeful. Glad to hear it's not a knee injury. They said it was a hamstring at least. So we'll be hopeful on that. But yeah, I mean, look, it's going to happen. There's no denying that the guys are going to give up goals. But it's really, really frustrating. To me, the worst part of it was like it wasn't some wonder strike. Like both of Abada's goals, they were hit well. They didn't ripple the side netting. They weren't in the upper 90. They kind of dribbled along the ground. It just felt like they could have been avoided one way or another, whether Williams could have stepped up, whether Cohen could have got to it. I wasn't satisfied that those were the goals and the strikes that beat you. I think that's part of the frustration as well.
And getting back into that idea, that once again, readdressing the clinical nature of there were 3 opportunities in the first 13, I think 4 in the first 19, where this game could have been blown wide open. It had Saba with his 2 opportunities. I think Thiago had 1, and then
Muyumba had 1 as well.
Right. So Saba in the 3rd and the 9th, Muyumba in the 12th, Jamal in the 19th, and Thiago in the 23rd. So 5 chances in the first 23 minutes.
Well, and this is what I pinpointed with Garrett Chapman in the postgame show was the same ball that put Saba in one-on-one with the keeper was the ball that Atlanta United had been beaten by twice this season. An errant pass on the back line that puts a guy in on goal, right? Here's the problem. The other teams buried their chances and we didn't. And that to me is almost equally as frustrating as anything else. I mean, look, when you look back at what Almada was trying to do and what Muyumba was trying to do, look, they are professional soccer players, but those are very difficult strikes to hit one time. Your body is moving a different direction from the ball. You're trying to get your foot around it. You're trying to pick out an upper court. I understand how difficult that is. Obviously, they are top of the line players. You'd hope they'd find a way to hit that one. Saba is the opportunity, though, that you really need to have back. He tried to wrap his foot around one. He didn't get the bend on it either. Maybe don't get cute. Maybe chip the keeper. Maybe go drive it right. Whatever it needs to be. But it was a one-on-one with a goalie. It was a gift given to you by a bad touch on defense, the same bad touch that has cost Atlanta United multiple goals this season, and you didn't make them pay. If you score that goal, the game probably ends, if we're being honest. Yeah. It's probably a completely different game. Certainly if it plays itself out to then still getting the Almada goal. later in the half. If you go up 2-0 with Charlotte's limitations offensively, they're not coming back from it. So, yeah, again, we can talk about chances created as much as we want. I know a lot of people want to blame Gonzalo Pineda for that. Ultimately, it might cost him his job. There's no denying that. Someone eventually has to take the fall. But again, and I've said this with you before, John, I can't find a definition of how it's Gonzalo Pineda's fault that Sabalo Janitze, one-on-one with the keeper, can't find a way to put it in the back of the net. And same thing with all of the other opportunities. The ball from Brooks Lennon that was just behind TRA. That's not a call from Pineda in the moment. Say, hey, put it here versus put it there. That's something the players are doing. And whether TRA's run was too fast, whether the ball was behind them, whatever it was, they didn't connect. That's not on Pineda for them not connecting in the moment. Same thing with the Almada shot, the other Moyamba strike. So, look, we understand the blame is going to be placed, but at the same time, if there's a new manager in there, do we think Saba all of a sudden finishes that chance or that Brooks Lennon all of a sudden connects with TRA on that cross? Like, it's very tough to place blame. I understand some of the frustration, but so much more of what's gone wrong this season with Atlanta United is not about Gonzalo Pineda. It is about the players on the pitch not getting it done in the key moments. But ultimately, we know where the blame is eventually going to fall, and that's going to be unavoidable.
Abe Gordon went through his 15 minutes like that. And, I mean, when there's stuff to talk about, it is 90 miles an hour, and we get a lot done. So, once again, my friend, thank you for dropping by on Mondays, as you always do. And any other parting shots before you actually head back to your paying gig?
No, I mean, look, we've got, 12, 13 days off here, a little bit of time to refresh. I know some guys are going to be gone, but whatever happens over these next 2 weeks, we need a different mindset, a different mentality, a refreshed approach, and just a reminder that some of the goals of the season are probably gone. We understand that, but not all of them. You can still find a way to start to win some games and pick up 3 points a week and maneuver your way up the standings. We all believe the talent is there for this team. They've got to get it done. They've got to showcase it. But I'm still hopeful. And look, I'm like one of those, like, always going to be optimistic until it's like obviously pessimistic time. But I'm always going to be hopeful that things turn around. I think the Braves are going to turn around on offense and go on a streak. I think Atlanta United is going to turn it around and find their way into the playoffs. Now, what can they do when they get there? They're going to be, at this point, most likely a road team in an opening round, and we saw how that worked out last year.
Yeah.
But I do think that there is still some quality in this season, and there's plenty of time to show that. So take this time and kind of regroup, reset, figure out what you want to do over these next 6 weeks with so many guys out for various reasons. And come back and approach it the right way. And let's start to win a couple of games. You got to win at home. You got to win on the road. And it's up to the players to get that accomplished.
At Abe Gordon, at 929 the game, pre and post host. See, if I say that too quickly, pre and post host, that just gets completely and totally jumbled together with you and Garrett Chapman. As always, my friend, great to have you here to kick things off every single week. And we will catch up with you next time.
You got it. Appreciate it, John. Thanks.